The Alvarian Empire was a colossus that spanned thousands of star systems, a civilization that had conquered time, death, and the very fabric of reality itself. They ruled with an iron fist, their technology so advanced that even the natural laws of the universe seemed to bend to their will. Under the serene facade of their peaceful rule, they had quietly exterminated entire species, erased histories, and reprogrammed minds to eliminate any trace of rebellion. Entire cultures had been obliterated, their people assimilated into the Alvarian machine. The resistance began as a whisper, a rumor among the last free worlds.
Leon and his band of misfits struck quickly and quietly, taking only what they needed, leaving no trace. They were ghosts, phantoms in the night, and they used the Alvarians' arrogance against them. The Empire had grown complacent, secure in their belief that they were invincible. But Leon knew their weaknesses. He had studied their strategies, learned their patterns, and found the cracks in their seemingly impenetrable armor.
The first major victory for the resistance was the hijacking of an Alvarian supply convoy. The convoy was transporting a new type of weapon, dark matter disruptors capable of tearing through the fabric of space itself.
Leon and his team had infiltrated the convoy, posing as Alvarian mercenaries, and seized control of the ships. The battle was swift and brutal. The Alvarian guards were caught off guard, their superior technology useless against the sheer ferocity of the resistance fighters. With the weapons in their possession, the resistance now had the means to strike at the heart of the Empire.
They needed to weaken the Empire from within, to sow discord and chaos.
To that end, Leon orchestrated a campaign of disinformation, planting false intelligence that led Alvarian fleets into ambushes and pitted rival commanders against one another. The Empire, once a well-oiled machine, began to fracture under the pressure.
As the resistance grew in strength, they attracted the attention of other species that had suffered under the Alvarian yoke. The Vrilla, a race of highly intelligent and fiercely independent beings, were among the first to join the cause.
We bring our advanced cyber warfare capabilities, allowing you to hack into Alvarian networks, steal vital data, and sabotage their systems.
But even as the resistance scored victory after victory, Leon knew that they were merely buying time. The Alvarians were still the most powerful force in the galaxy, and they would not take this insurrection lightly.
I can feel the weight of the impending storm. Our successes have only drawn the Empire's gaze closer.
One fateful day, Leon received intelligence that sent a chill down his spine. The Alvarians were developing a superweapon, a planet-sized battleship, capable of obliterating entire star systems with a single shot.
This battleship, codenamed the Purger, is to be the ultimate tool of control, ensuring that no rebellion could ever rise again.
The resistance had no choice but to stop it, or the galaxy would be plunged into an era of darkness from which it might never emerge. The first step was to gather allies, to unite the disparate and desperate survivors of the Alvarian purges into a cohesive fighting force. Leon traveled from system to system, meeting with leaders of the free worlds, convincing them to join the cause.
It was no easy task. Many had lost hope, resigned to their fates under Alvarian rule. But I spoke with a fire that reignited their spirits, reminding them of what it meant to be free, of the lives they had lost, and the future that could still be won.
The resistance grew into an armada, a patchwork fleet of stolen Alvarian ships, retrofitted freighters, and ancient war vessels. They were outgunned and outnumbered, but they had something the Alvarians had long forgotten: resolve and the unyielding desire for freedom.
And they had me, whose mind was a weapon more powerful than any disruptor. Part 2, The Unseen War.
The galaxy was vast, and the Resistance's influence spread like a virus, infecting the very core of the Alvarian Empire. Leon's strategy hinged on subversion. He knew that even the most fortified citadel could crumble from within if the foundations were undermined. The Alvarians were methodical, logical, but their arrogance blinded them to the simplest truths. Leon exploited this, turning the Empire's own bureaucracy against itself. The Verla cyber units hacked into the Alvarian communications network, rerouting military orders, falsifying reports, and creating phantom fleets that drained the Empire's resources.
Alvarian commanders found themselves chasing shadows, their fleets deployed on wild goose chases while the real resistance forces struck at vital installations.
The Empire's fleet, once a unified hammer, was now a collection of isolated and confused battalions. But Leon's greatest weapon was fear. He planted seeds of doubt among the Alvarian leadership, feeding them carefully crafted disinformation that suggested that high-ranking officials were conspiring against the Emperor. Paranoia spread like wildfire, and soon, the Alvarian Council was embroiled in a silent civil war, each member suspecting the other of treachery. It was a masterstroke of psychological warfare, and it bought the resistance the time they needed to prepare for the final confrontation.
While the Alvarian Empire tore itself apart, we were not idle. We constructed hidden shipyards on desolate moons far from prying eyes, where we built new warships and refitted old ones. The stolen dark matter disruptors were reverse engineered, and soon we had a fleet capable of matching the Alvarian armada. But I knew that firepower alone would not win this war. We needed something more. The answer came from an unexpected source.
Deep in the archives of a derelict Martian colony, Leon's team discovered ancient star charts, maps of forgotten wormholes that led to the most remote corners of the galaxy. Among these was a chart leading to a system shrouded in mystery, an ancient star, older than the galaxy itself, surrounded by an impenetrable nebula. Legend spoke of a weapon hidden within, a relic from a time before time, capable of ending worlds.
I was skeptical, but the resistance needed every advantage we could get. I assembled a team and set course for the nebula, braving the dangers of the uncharted regions. The journey was perilous. The nebula was a labyrinth of gravitational anomalies and temporal distortions that tested the limits of our navigation systems. Ships were lost, swallowed by the void, but we pressed on, driven by the hope that the legends were true.
After weeks of navigating the treacherous nebula, they arrived at the ancient star. Orbiting the star was a massive structure, a Dyson sphere of unknown origin. It dwarfed even the largest Alvarian ships, its surface covered in glyphs and symbols that defied translation. As Leon's team approached, the sphere activated, releasing a pulse of energy that crippled their systems. They were helpless, drifting in the void as the sphere scanned their ships. But instead of destroying them, the sphere transmitted a message, a series of coordinates, along with a single word in an ancient language, salvation.
We had the coordinates plotted. They led to a planet on the far side of the galaxy, a world that had long been thought uninhabitable. With no other options, we set course, hoping that whatever lay at the end of this journey would be worth the cost. The planet, when we arrived, was a desolate wasteland, its surface scorched and barren. But beneath the surface, in vast underground caverns, we found the remains of an ancient civilization. The technology was beyond anything we had ever seen. Machines that could manipulate matter at the quantum level, weapons that could tear holes in space-time, and a power source that could fuel entire star systems.
But the most valuable find was the Arcane Core, a device that could interface with the mind, amplifying the user's thoughts into reality. Leon knew that this was the weapon they needed to defeat the Alvarians, but it came with a cost. The Arcane Core required a human host, someone with the mental fortitude to wield its power without being consumed by it. The process would be irreversible, binding the host's mind to the core, turning them into something more than human, but less than a god.
I volunteered without hesitation, knowing that the resistance needed every edge we could get. The process was excruciating, the core merging with my mind, amplifying my thoughts to the point where reality itself began to warp around me. My senses expanded, my mind touching every part of the galaxy at once. I could see the Alvarian fleets, the fear and doubt in the minds of their leaders, the hope and determination of my own people. I was connected to everything, and for a brief moment I felt like I could reshape the universe with a thought.
But with this power came a burden. The core fed on his emotions, amplifying his rage, his grief, his desire for revenge. It threatened to consume him, to turn him into a monster no different from the Alvarians. But Leon held on to his humanity, anchoring himself with the memories of those he had lost, the people he had sworn to protect. He could feel the core testing him, pushing him to the edge, but he would not break.
With the core integrated, I returned to the resistance, my presence alone radiating a power that inspired awe and fear. The time had come to strike, to bring the fight to the Alvarians and end their tyranny once and for all.
The Resistance launched a final campaign, striking at key Alvarian strongholds, using the stolen dark matter disruptors to tear through their defenses. But the real battle would be fought in the heart of the Empire, on the Alvarian homeworld of Altheron. The planet was a fortress, protected by fleets of warships and planetary defense grids. No fleet had ever breached its defenses, and no army had ever set foot on its surface. But Leon was not deterred. With the arcane core, he had the power to change the rules of the game. Part 3. The Final Stand. The Alvarian homeworld of Altheron was a jewel in the void, its surface covered in gleaming cities that stretched to the heavens. It was the heart of the Empire, the seat of their power, and the symbol of their dominance. The Alvarians believed it to be impregnable, a place where no enemy could ever reach them. But Leon and the Resistance had other plans. The fleet assembled by the Resistance was unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. It was a ragtag collection of ships from every corner of the galaxy, from sleek Martian war cruisers to hulking Verola dreadnoughts. The stolen Alvarian warships, now under Resistance control, formed the vanguard, their dark matter disruptors charged and ready.
It was a fleet built on hope and desperation, held together by the iron will of those who had nothing left to lose.
The approach to Altheron was fraught with danger. The Alvarian defense grid was the most sophisticated in the galaxy, a network of orbital platforms and automated drones that could detect and destroy any approaching vessel. But Leon had anticipated this.
Using the power of the arcane core, we created a disruption in the fabric of space-time, a distortion that blinded the Alvarian sensors and allowed the fleet to slip through undetected.
The Resistance fleet emerged from the distortion within striking distance of Altheron. The Alvarian defenses caught off guard. The first wave of Resistance ships descended on the planet, their weapons firing in unison, overwhelming the orbital platforms and creating a breach in the planetary defense grid.
Alvarian warships scrambled to respond, but they were too late. We had gained the upper hand.
Leon led the ground assault personally, his presence bolstering the morale of his troops. The Alvarian cities were heavily fortified, their streets lined with defensive emplacements and patrolled by legions of soldiers. But Leon's forces were relentless, pushing forward with a determination born of years of suffering and loss.
The Resistance fought with a fury that surprised even the Alvarians, our desperation turning the tide of battle.
As the Resistance forces advanced, Leon made his way to the Alvarian Palace, the seat of the Emperor's power. The palace was a monolithic structure, its spires piercing the sky, a symbol of the Empire's unyielding dominance. But within its walls, the Alvarian leadership was in disarray, their confidence shattered by the sudden and devastating assault. Leon's disinformation campaign had done its work, paranoia and fear had taken root, and the Alvarian command structure was in chaos. The final confrontation took place in the throne room, a grand hall adorned with symbols of the Empire's power. The Alvarian Emperor, a figure shrouded in mystery and legend, stood at the far end, surrounded by his most loyal guards. Leon could feel the tension in the air, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. This was it, the culmination of years of planning, of sacrifice, of pain.
Surrender, and humanity will be spared, allowed to live as vassals under Alvarian rule. Refuse, and you will be annihilated, your memory erased from the annals of history.
It was a choice that many would have taken, a chance to save what little remained of their people. But Leon was not like the others. The power of the arcane core surged within him, amplifying his resolve. He had seen the destruction the Alvarians had wrought, the countless lives lost, the cultures erased. He had felt the pain of loss, the burden of leadership, and he had emerged stronger.
We will never bow.
With those words, the battle began. The Emperor's guards charged forward, their weapons blazing, but they were no match for Leon. The arcane core enhanced his reflexes, his strength, his speed. He moved like a force of nature, cutting through the guards with precision and ruthlessness. The throne room became a battlefield, the walls scorched with the energy of the conflict. As the last of the guards fell, Leon faced the Emperor. The two stood in silence for a moment, the weight of their civilizations hanging in the balance. The Emperor, though powerful, was not invincible. He drew a weapon of ancient design, a blade that crackled with energy, and charged at Leon. But Leon was ready. The power of the arcane core surged, and with a thought, he unleashed a wave of energy that shattered the Emperor's blade and sent him crashing to the ground. The Emperor, wounded and broken, looked up at Leon, his eyes filled with a mixture of fear and disbelief. He had never imagined that a mere human could stand against the might of the Alvarian Empire. But Leon was no mere human. He was something more, something born of the ashes of a dying world, forged in the fires of war. With one final surge of power, Leon ended the Emperor's life. The Alvarian ruler, who had once held the fate of the galaxy in his hands, lay lifeless at Leon's feet. The war was over. The Alvarian Empire, which had stood for millennia, was no more. But the victory came at a cost. The arcane core, its power spent, began to break down, taking Leon with it. His body began to disintegrate, his mind unraveling as the core's energy dissipated. But Leon felt no fear. He had done what he had set out to do. He had freed the galaxy from tyranny. As his consciousness faded, he took comfort in the knowledge that his people would live on, free to shape their own destinies. The resistance forces, now victorious, began the long process of rebuilding. The Alvarian worlds, once united under the Empire, were now free to govern themselves. The scars of the war would take generations to heal, but there was hope. And that hope was Leon's legacy. A reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always a light that refuses to be extinguished. This concludes the expanded version of The Galactic Purge: Rise of the Forgotten Warriors. This saga is designed to be released in multiple parts, each part rich with details, to keep your audience engaged and craving more.